is weight loss just about willpower? No. Probably one of the most important aspects of this is something called metabolic adaptation. So, I think a lot of times we are told at points in life that yo-yo dieting is bad, but nobody ever really finishes that sentence. Why is that? Why is it bad? And so a large part of the answer to this is something called metabolic adaptation. So one of the first conversations that I have with patients when we come in are, what are your goals? Like, where are you at? Very extensive, weight history, when we gained, have we ever been successful losing before? But most importantly, have you ever at any time in your life lost 10% of your body weight or more? So if you weighed 130 pounds, did you lose 13 pounds? If you weighed 200 pounds, did you lose 20 or more? And why? Because there is a permanent consequence to this, and that is called metabolic adaptation. So if we have ever lost significant weight in our life, this is another part of why it's not just willpower. From your body's perspective, you sort of tried to kill it, okay? And, from a survival perspective, which is what the caveman in your brainstem is tasked with, all fat is good fat. These are wonderful, plentiful energy reserves. And just in case there's another ice age, I'm going to save you. That's the perspective of your body, okay? But then your body's not aware that there's HEB on the corner or whatever. So, when we have lost weight in the past, the body will generally tolerate about a 10% loss without too much fuss. But after that, things get real. And this is the answer to every diet works for a while and then it always stops working. Yes, because you're human. And so your body at that point she's trying to kill us, or he, and it's going to slam the brakes. So important thing to know, you are not the only factor in your weight loss equation, okay? Your body is too. And so your body will always and inevitably adapt to what you do consistently. And, the emotional part of this is, as weight loss patients, we all tend to have an emotional attachment to any method of loss that has been successful before. And so this can be pretty painful and we want to hold on to it. But part of the trick is just understanding and changing that narrative. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm human. And we should change that conversation to, right on schedule. And now I need to change what I'm doing. And also understand that physiologically in the background, what has transpired is your body realized there was a significant decrease in fat mass and therefore dropped your metabolic rate. Plenty of sources out there on this, and there can be wide variation amongst individuals. You see a lot of sources really reference about 400 calories per day if a person has a history of significant prior loss. There is significant interpersonal variation on this, and the Kevin Hall studies after The Biggest Loser, 6 years after a participation, not one single person had returned to a baseline metabolic rate, and the average was around actually 600 calories. Those are not atypical patients, right? Because they had started much heavier. But what we all need to understand is, just because you put it in that little calculator does not mean that that is potentially, the correct answer for calories per day for you. If you have a significant history of prior loss, it's not going to be the right answer. And in fact, that number can be really low. So are there people walking the face of the planet today that can, only have several hundred calories per day, or they're going to gain? Yes, actually, that's a fact. And so again, if a patient comes in and they're saying, I'm only having X number of calories per day and I'm exercising and can't lose weight, that could be true. And your general reasons that we're going to look at for this are going to be, is there a significant amount of insulin resistance, and or do we need to account for metabolic adaptation? These things are actually testable as well. Sometimes if there's a significant variation in body composition, we can find out that we might have been a little bit off on that as well. But again, not all about willpower, okay? Many of us who have a history of prior loss or some yo-yoing are going to have not the greatest metabolic rate, and there's part of the journey is accepting, hey, you know what? This isn't really ever going to be fair. It already wasn't if I got here, and there are ways to work around this and strategies that we can talk about, but realizing, hey, this may not look like a normal number. That just may be a fact, and it's something that we can work through together.